Welcome to another Playful Humans podcast. I'm your host, Mike Montague, and my guest this week is founder of Imagine That. It's Steve Ricks, and he is helping influencers, owners, managers, other humans to be more playful, use play in their everyday work and life. So I'm super excited to talk to him. If you are excited about that, we got two options for you. You can join Steve's Fun Frequency group on Facebook, where they have play challenges, daily play challenges, or you can go to playfulhumans.com and take our playful personality quiz and find out which type of playful human you are. Playfulhumans.com. Here we go. Don't wait for welcome to the show. We like to start with the joke of the week. The joke of the week is brought to you by popcorn. If you can find a way to swallow a bag of popcorn right before you die, you will have an epic cremation. Try popcorn today. What do you call how do you cook an alligator?
How do you cook an alligator?
In a crock pot.
Boom. So when I was growing up, you know how people say your dog ate your homework, and they say that's a lie? My dog actually did eat my homework. I'm not lying, but here's my joke. Why did the kids eat their homework?
I don't know.
Because the teacher said it was a piece of cake.
All right, there you go. At least two good jokes you can share with anyone in
rated G for sure.
And they'll enjoy that. Steve, I'm really excited to talk to another play professional, because every time we get into this, I learn something that I didn't know. So what would you say is the first thing you would like to tell people about rediscovering the power of play?
That is a great question, Mike. And hands down, like, if this is the only thing I ever told every person I came in touch with, I would tell them to fall in love with play no matter what it took, because I have the science, the personal experience, and countless case studies of people who prove this simple statement. Play is the shortcut to human transformation. It's the shortcut to a happy life, to a healthy business environment, to juicy, wonderful relationships, parents, kids, husbands, wives, right? Like, play is the shortcut to save the day.
I totally believe that. And it's crazy how much scientific research, I haven't found one that said it's a bad idea. Right. I found gurus that think they know, that are like, you follow my 7-step plan to riches, you can do that. But I've never seen a scientific study that said play was a bad idea, that it would make you unhealthier or unhappier or anything. I've seen it makes you smarter. You have more sex, you smile more, you lose weight. You're smart, more creative. It's crazy.
You are spot on. And just to give the simplest science, some people don't much think about brain science, right? And I never did until I 10 years ago went on a quest to have a life that was full of more, better, and different, because so much of my life was filled with less, worse, and all the same, right? So when I went on that quest for more, better, different, it started by understanding the neuroscience of the brain. And if I can just leave the viewing and listening audience with one really powerful thought, it's this: that think about the synapse posts on Frankenstein, Mary Shelley's character, the author, right? Came out of the neck. Well, we have microscopic synapses, posts in the brain. And when I experience something for the first time, it goes from one post to the other. It's called a neural pathway, where neurons ping off of each other. So people always say, how do we get habits or patterns? Well, if I ping and it pings back with, oh, that felt good, I liked it, whatever, right? It says, do it again. And over a period of time, we embed literally in the gray matter trenches, microscopically speaking, pathways that say, we're going to protect this because it said you felt good, which, by the way, is the same reason why I can feel good getting a hug. And I could also, quote, feel good sticking a heroin needle in my arm. It's why people get addicted, because they go with the first response not the after effect, right? So
Yeah.
it's pure brain science. But watch this: to embed or to replace any one of those pathways, neuroscientists have said standard a minimum of 400 times to embed or change a behavior, minimum. And that's assuming that those pings back and forth happened in a small period of time. That's why when people talk about baby steps and trying to change their life, it usually doesn't work. Watch this. This is the thing that has me so excited about play. Play, hands down, multiple studies, 10 to 20 times, and I can change a behavior. Or, I mean, that's what is that? That's 40 times, 20 to 40 times less.
Yeah.
Why not have a shortcut?
Well, that when I heard that, I found that just completely amazing, but it makes sense, right? When you think back to a childhood, when you're playing and learning, you know, it doesn't take that long, especially when you're involved in a game or where you're playing, being social with friends, and you're like, oh, if I do this, my friends act negatively. If I do this, they laugh and have fun, and I get to play more. You adapt very quickly to that. But whenever we try to force ourselves into work, whenever you say, oh, I need to study my math problems and do my times tables, it takes those 400 repetitions because we're not playing, we're not having fun, we're pushing too hard.
Yeah, which by, if you take that, what you just said, Mike, and you put that in the context of education, it's really why we got to throw modern education out the window and make it way more experiential and way less rote, way less about getting correct answers and way more about asking curious questions. And as adults, especially for those people who are in the workforce, and you and I know this, Mike, because we've been in or around professional development the better portion of our whole career. Mm-hmm. Like, I've been called in to try to change the culture of workplaces. I know you work with one of the most recognizable countries in America and the world on how to make sales performance better or how to bring customer service to the table better. And yet the reality is, even with great programs and products and services, we still have a global workforce which 75 to 80% say they're unengaged or disengaged, and they don't like their job. What if we embedded play as part of the cultural code of a workplace where we gave people freedom, let their imagination wake up? And it's counterculture. Even before we came live today, I was watching a little news, and the banking industry is really pressing hard here in America to get people back to work. And when they gave the reasons, they said because young people are incapable of working at home. I thought, way to endear yourself to the biggest growing, largest purchasing power in the United States and the world, the millennials and Gen Zers. Like, anybody is capable of working anywhere at any time if it's engaging. And when we can weave play into a work culture, we're going to see much higher performance. We're going to see a much greater degree of emotional, let's say, non-adaptive behavior. Most people have to change who they are to come to work. And if I can't just be who I am, like if there's one of me for work, one for home, one for social settings, it's a lot of wasted energy shifting who I am. If I can come into a workplace or a home environment for that matter and just be who I am, because kids have perfect self-expression. If we could mirror that, and play helps bring that out. I mean, and I'll hand it back to you, but even think of this thought, right? Like, when you think about soldiers back in Vietnam to forward, and they're going into unknown areas where there's insurgent behavior. And of course, I hate war, right? There's nothing about it I like. But what do? They throw a soccer ball down on the ground to build trust by playing, right? Play resolves conflict. It creates trust. It breeds transparency. There's so many elements that are vibrant and far more efficient than the stock, let's take a little bit of a rah-rah meeting and a little bit of an accountability session, right? One of the people who works for us, she's our chief play officer. You met her, Bree. She said to me yesterday, she said, you know what I resist most? And I said, what is that? She said, self-discipline. I said, okay, what would your life be like if you didn't have to discipline yourself, if every choice you made, you were irresistibly drawn to it. Play does that. That's why I haven't worked in 7 years. And yet I've been working
so
hard.
Right. I mean, it's so crazy because it's counterintuitive and obvious at the same time. It's obvious to anybody that plays for a living that it's way better than working hard for a living and the fulfillment. But you hit on so many good things there. Obviously, I wanted to talk about the school work a little bit because we're trained for the first 20 years of our life that if we follow these instructions and we follow the test and we memorize that we'll get rewarded for it. And so that's what I think makes all of this counterintuitive now as adults, because you become an adult and like you said, millennials graduate school. Life is an open book test. You don't need to memorize history when you can Google it.
Yeah.
But guess what we do need? We do need people who have imagination, like the name of your company. And so computers can't imagine possibilities and futures for us. They could run simulations and give us data back on it, but they can't imagine those things. Humans can do that.
We gave birth to the computer. It was
with other people, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Sales. And so it's such a weird thing that life is an open book test, but guess what? There's not any questions on it.
Right.
There's no right or wrong answer. There's no final exam. And so it throws people way off.
Yeah. I did some personal development work some years ago with one of the oldest seminar companies in America. Shout out to companies like Landmark or Personal Success Institute. These different companies have been around for decades, right? And I did some work with Personal Success Institute about 10 years ago, really very transformative in opening my mind to possibilities. And I'll never forget one of the facilitators, because my life has been littered with, just fabulous mess ups, like, whoops, that didn't work. Right. Like, and yet I came from an environment that it was deeply embedded in my brain that I had to be, not perfect, but I had to be a good boy, right? I grew up in a steeped religion of works where I had to behave certain ways. And if I didn't, never mind the human judgment, there'd be this impending unseen judgment. And I'm deeply spiritual, but I've moved past that construct. And now the way I look at my life is not a stage. I don't need to perform for anyone. Now, I may be playful and therefore theatrical and animated. That's a beautiful thing, right? But when kids are going through the schooling or educational process, if there's one thing I could transfer to any young person today, and it's what I tell a lot of the people I work with, adult clients, life is a laboratory. Blow it up. Like, experiment. And experiment early and often. The old expression, fail forward fast. I have a beautiful relationship personally to failure. Like, it's not a failure until you quit, right? Like, it's just an experiment. So just keep playing in the laboratory. Put all the test tubes together. Put wires together. Blow things up with your imagination and creativity, because it's not so much about the result. It's about the curiosity with the process. And so when we think about what that could mean in any number of applications, what if children were rewarded for the most outlandish, curious questions? What if young adults were rewarded for not academic grades, but community impact? What if adults were no longer on a corporate ladder where they're chasing the 1% of wealth that over the last 40 years has become so disparagingly disproportionate, right? Like, what if we were all asking questions like, if I added a little imagination to my life, just a little bit, how could it be more? How could it be better? How could it be different? And oftentimes people say, I'm imaginative. I say, well, state your case. Well, I'm a very creative person. To which I say, being creative and imaginative are two different things, because just by virtue of illustration. So if I had 3 cans of Play-Doh, we use lots of toys in our coaching to just get people's mind differently. And I said, all right, I'm going to be imaginative. Well, if I go like this, and like this, and then put them in this order, that's not imaginative. That's just creative. Taking the conscious world I have and reordering it for more purposeful, meaningful results. Now, if I added to the Play-Doh a slinky, and I'd never seen a slinky in my life before, and now I'm using them together, that would be imagination, bringing something new that I'd never experienced into the equation. And really the joy of life, where we get most brain like firing when they scan your brain, where you see it light up, is with the curious interaction with new information. And being in a place and being in a play state gives us what we call neural plasticity, right? Otherwise, we hold on to calcified ideology. Those neurons I was talking about, they fire back and forth. And if we keep letting those neurons fire back and forth, over time, a coating called myelin comes around them, and it becomes a really unbreakable pattern, deeply embedded. To break that calcified ideology, play can dissolve it in an instant, because it says, what's behind the door? What's in the cave? What's underwater, right? Metaphorically and truly physically.
I love what you did there to illustrate the different types of creativity. I think people like the creativity of a creative solution and coming in on a right answer. But like I mentioned earlier, life doesn't have right answers. There are millions of opportunities. And this idea of imagination, using it as multiple answers, multiple different and creative and novel ways of thinking, is so much more powerful, because for me, that's what life is. That, you know, we think we can control things, and we as humans like fool ourselves into thinking that we could find an answer to something. But the fact is, everybody out there, even the experts we found, you know, in the last year and a half especially, are making it up as they go along. They don't really, you know. And have you heard the Lego block analogy, Steve? The one
I don't think I have, but tell me. Whoops.
If you have, we knocked the camera down too.
Sorry.
Now we're getting creative. How many ways do you think you can combine 6 8-studded Lego bricks of the same color?
You told me this when we were chatting the other day. Was it 60,000 variations? Something crazy like that?
It's over 100 million possible ways.
That's crazy.
So
that's crazy.
If those are finite bricks. Now, if you think about 6 people, how could 6 people combine together in a way that's interesting?
Right.
Well, if it's got to be billions and billions of possible ways, right? There's no one best way to do that.
So in 2018, just a little bit before the pandemic, and to back up, I started my company, Imagine That, in 2014. I said to people, I'm going to use imagination and play to make the workplace better. And people told me I was crazy. It was too esoteric. It was too childish. Well, in 2018, I think it was late in the year, Harvard Business Review said the single most necessary corporate tool belt that very few corporate executives even understand, yet will be essential to the future of business and the transformative nature of humanity's cultural, sets, is imagination. And in the book called Group Genius, forgive me, I don't remember the author, but it's a great read. In Group Genius, they talk about, if you look at all the cool things that happen in life, it's just like your Lego illustration and people illustration. It's not my one block that makes it happen. It's when I put my blocks with other people's blocks, right? And Group Genius is all about the power of improvisational thinking in work, in life. And if you think in business, when do people, good companies in the past would say, once every 6 months, we're going to do a leadership retreat or a sales management or middle managers. We're going to get them together and we're going to do a little brainstorming, just a little. And also so every 6 months we can kind of get ahead of the curve. The world is changing so quickly, and it is now occupied and influenced by 38-year-olds and younger. Like I heard by 2025, this was before the pandemic, so it might be changed a little. But by 2025, 79% of the workforce will be under the age of 37, right? Wow. That's a whole different way. Yeah, it's a whole different way of thinking. And so no longer is it about having a meeting once every 6 months to reshape our business. It's about like improvisation, being on the tool belt daily. Like, hey, let's stop everything. Let's riff on this, or let's play with that, or grab a whiteboard or whatever, right? Creativity and imagination and playfulness is it's really going to, I think, take the world by storm in the very best way. The pandemic gave us all reason for pause.
Yeah.
We'll see what people do with it, right? Some companies still do not have the luxury. I kind of say, well, the U.S. got themselves in deep kimchi real fast, right? They were way up here in it, right? And then, they've seemed to do an excellent job of getting out of it, perhaps faster than other places. But generally speaking, by probably early 2022, some sense of new normal will show up, but you can be sure it's going to be different. And in life, in our working endeavors, in our communities, in our social relationships, bringing play to the forefront, I think, can infinitely support the well-being of a very fractured world that now has to begin thinking about how to heal. Because remember, in the middle of all of that, we've had enormous social unrest here locally, right? And these issues abound everywhere. Just look at Venezuela, look at Ukraine, look at China, right? I mean, all around the world, corporate governance is being pressed up upon. I forget the dissenter in Russia who's now being imprisoned, right? And it doesn't really matter. Like, to me, I tell people, yeah, here's my political persuasion. I am humanitarian. Like, whatever honors the well-being of everyone who takes breath. And we're a long way from that. But play can accelerate the transformative process to bring us all together, because it's a community thing.
I totally agree. And for me, it's about playing then an infinite game of connection and humanness that is different than this game we've been playing for too long, thousands of years now, around scarcity of resources and territories and power and control that doesn't help anyway. There's no way to win that game. And look, the evidence is in. It's not turning out well for humanity. We've run out of space. And now resources and other things.
Let's face it.
And now we need to play our way out of it.
Yeah, when I grew up, there was a board game called Risk. I think it still exists, right?
Yeah.
And Parker Brothers, I think, made it or something like that. And it was fun. You'd roll the dice and you'd spend hours trying to conquer the world. But the premise of conquering the world is deeply embedded in scarcity.
Yeah.
And yet here we live in a world that when we pay better attention to how to interface with Mother Nature, the natural resources that exist, it would be a lot easier. When we give pause to the fact that none of the earth is really ours. This all started when people started staking land. This is mine, that's yours, right?
For sure. But it's also such dumb hubris to think that you can control the world. Like, we can't control our environment. We can't control 10 people in your family.
Control's an illusion.
Yeah.
Like, control's an illusion. Yeah.
Totally. So I want to ask you one last question about yourself personally, because I found everybody does have a different play personality. And obviously you're a very playful human yourself. And in your Facebook group too, we want to remind everybody to go there as well. Yeah. Fun frequency is encouraging people to play. What for you is the most fun type of play, and what does play mean for you in action? Because it could be physical body play, it could be mental play and creativity, play, or art, or societal and interacting with other humans. Which aspect of it is most fun for you personally?
I would say it's twofold. Anything outdoors. I love nature. So you see some golf clubs behind me. I've got like a camel pack behind me. Hawaii's my home, where I'm moments away from waterfalls, sailing, scuba diving, paddle boarding. I love the water. I love nature. I love outdoors. It wakes up curiosity. At the same time, it creates an exercise experience oftentimes. And it gets me going around and really a wide range of cultures and experiences. The second way I love to play is with anything that I think this is kind of like an ulterior motive. Anything I think can catch the attention of someone else, because my type of play, I'm a gatherer. Like play isn't designed to be alone, right? And some people help, create the setting for play. Other people make sure everybody has something to play with. I'm the guy who goes around and says, hey, you want to come play? So it would not be uncommon for this to be like, if I'm in a Starbucks, for this to be next to my laptop. I would bring this and stick it in the back of my backpack and literally let this little minion's eyes sit out the top of the backpack. So people say, what is that? Well, it's a minion, of course. Yeah, but why do you have it? You're an adult, right? Like,
right.
I love any kind of play.
I love a good koosh ball or anything.
Yes,
you hold up a koosh, anybody's going to throw it. Right?
The tactile stuff, right? Yeah. But anything that visually gets people a little shocked and say, what is he doing? That kind of thing. Yeah. So nature
now,
and
tell me about
play.
your fun bucket list. What would you still like to accomplish? Something big that's still on your list? Or I know you have a big vision for Imagine That and what you want to do with play. So maybe they go together, or maybe those are separate.
Well, I think my life is wonderfully interwoven. I'm still kind of figuring out a few things. Like we're working now in very early stages on an artificial intelligence mobile app that literally finds you as a result of how you play. It's kind of leading edge technology. It's a couple years away, but so when I think about what excites me most and what's still on the bucket list, I have a real passion to bring play to the entire globe. And I know personally I can't do that. So from a legacy perspective, in the next 10 years, I would love, and I believe we will, have the ability to get in front of at least 10 million influencers, people just like you and me, from all walks of life, from all cultures in the world, who just want to help people be happy, right? And from a bucket list personally, part of the way I intend to do that is in 5 years, my son and I will set sail from Hawaii on a 2.5 to 3 year experiment, sailing our way around the world, bringing play to every port we go in, documenting it as we go, and then letting that become a huge tool, both corporately and community-wise, demonstrating how the people of the world play. And I think because we play very differently. And I'll give you one last thought on that. There's a great book called The Blue Zones about 6 places in the world where people live over 100 consistently. And one of the common threads of each of those blue zones? Community play. I could be 3, I could be 100. I'm dancing in a circle once a week in a family, oriented environment, all sorts of crazy good stuff. So some cool stuff. And I think we're just scratching the tip of the iceberg, but it's so limitless what play brings to life. Shouldn't be the container we get to later. Should be the thing that we lead with now.
Oh, for sure. I 100% agree with you, and I appreciate you taking the time to share it with us. We're talking with Steve Ricks, founder of Imagine That. You can find them at Fun Frequency on Facebook, or I also have his email in the show notes for you here as well. But I don't think I have to ask you, but I ask everybody because I feel like play has to be voluntary. Would you like to play or walk away, Steve?
No, we're going to play.
I haven't had anybody say no yet, and I didn't think you were going to be our first one. But awesome. You got 2 truths and a lie. 2 truths and a lie. So 3 fun facts about yourself. One of them is made up, and I'll try and guess which one is made up. I'll go first, though.
Okay.
I have voted in every presidential election since I turned 18. I have been elected to local office, or I have been arrested and thrown in jail.
Ooh. And I got to tell which of those is...
which one is the lie?
Which is a lie? Okay. Yeah. Oh, wow. That you voted in all the elections.
No, I have voted, but I have not been elected to any public office.
Man, I just felt like that was the tricky one. That was like, that would certainly be the one that's no, but I'm going to say you're tricking me. So, man, missed that one. But that's interesting.
I felt like I do kind of have my dead and grew up in like a small suburb of Kansas City, I feel like I could be a mayor sometime.
Yeah, or like a councilman. I thought I was sure. I was like, but well, maybe
I thought that would get you. That's
maybe,
good.
Yeah, you got me. Maybe there's a playful political future for you to redefine politics.
And then in my 20s, when I was in radio, I got arrested for basically being broke. Expired tags that were so expired, it got me arrested. All right, your turn. 3 fun facts for you.
All right. Fact number 1, or fiction, you get to decide. I sang a solo as Kermit the Frog on Broadway. Fact number 2, I was pushed off a boat into a feeding frenzy of sharks. And fact number 3, I was wrongfully put in jail for 3 days.
Oh, we both went with jail. That's so funny. It must be because that's like one of our fears. All right. So I think I'm just going to go obvious on this one. You're in Hawaii. I feel like there's sharks, so that's probably happened. I feel like arrested in jail sounds like something that could happen for a lot of different reasons too. But on Broadway, as Kermit the Frog, seems like a bit of a stretch, even though I do a good Kermit the Frog here. I'm going to say that I haven't heard you do any impressions or singing, so I'm going to say that's the lie.
That is the lie. Good job. And actually, long before I moved to Hawaii, I was a scuba instructor. I was off the coast of Los Angeles on a shark diving trip. And I brought a bunch of people, and my buddy owned the boat, and he says, you don't need to get in the cage. And before I could barely get my gear on, he pushed me in the water around a whole bunch of sharks. And it was really amazing. It worked out fine. I'm still here. Yeah. And yeah, I literally got pulled over in Arizona on the side of like a Kingman, Arizona, like the Eagles sing, up there in the middle of nowhere. And a warrant for my arrest in Arizona when I was still living in Hawaii. It was a strange thing. And I went to some, country bumpkin jail for 3 days before I could finally find a way to get out. It was crazy.
Get bailing, get out. Yeah. It was crazy. It was funny when I was on the radio because the police officer recognized me, but he said it afterwards. So he came back to arrest me. He's like, I'm going to have to take you in. He's like, by the way, are you Romeo? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, oh man. I was like, I thought you looked familiar, but he's like, I already called this in. I'm sorry. I have to take you in. I'm like, well, that doesn't help. Like,
no fun, right?
First, but yeah, but I feel like that's a white person's problem there for sure as well. I love your story, and thank you for spending the time with us. You earned yourself a free 30-second commercial here. Any asks or gifts for the audience? What would you like to tell people watching or listening?
I would just refer back to what we were talking about earlier. We started 3 weeks ago on Facebook a pure experiment that we're doing all summer long, and there is no solicitation in it. So no one's going to try to sell you anything. We're inviting people to come to the Fun Frequency Facebook group for one reason. We're challenging them every day, all day this summer to at least 5 minutes a day. Take some time to play. Play doesn't have to be a day off. It doesn't have to be this long drawn out thing. It can happen instantaneously. And then we're asking people to share what their experiences are through the channel. We're providing a whole bunch of great data, science, inspirational interviews, other people's information. We've got some of your posts that have gone up or will go up. It's just an opportunity for people to redefine their relationship with play. And my commercial is, come check it out. You got nothing to lose.
Yeah, for sure. It's just fun. So go to the Fun Frequency on Facebook, or also you can email Steve. His email is in the show notes. That's Steve Ricks at Imagine That. I am Mike Montague with Playful Humans. You can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify. How about right here on YouTube? If you're watching the video on YouTube, click subscribe, turn the alerts on with the bell, and help us out there. Give us a thumbs up and share it. Also, I'd love to hear your suggestions or introductions for future guests. If you know anybody that plays for a living, has a whole bunch of fun, I want to hear about it, especially for other Playful Humans. And don't forget to go online and check out the quiz in the community at playfulhumans.com.
Don't wait for tomorrow. Live for today. Keep on chasing the sunshine. And go out and play.
Go play, everybody.